WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Blake Stevens. Well, once again, the COVID-19 pandemic forcing us to do things a bit differently. Well, Thursday, I sat down with Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs with 6 feet of social distance. We talked about the county's response to this pandemic and a shocking crime in our community. Mayor Glenn Jacobs, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I know it's a busy week ahead, busy few weeks ahead. We want to get started with something you actually brought up, something that's on your heart to talk about this morning, and that's the tragedy we saw a couple days ago.
Sure. And Tuesday there was an attack at the pilot in Strawberry Plains. It was a horrific, evil crime, and we're praying for the victims and their families, and also thanks to the heroes who stopped even more death from happening.
Yeah, you specifically wanted to talk about this issue. Is it something that's been on your mind, something you've been paying close attention to?
It's something that we shouldn't forget. It was just, we use the term senseless a lot, and this was truly senseless. I mean, there was no reason for it. It was an evil act. Innocent people were harmed and killed for no reason other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it's one of those things you try to wrap your mind around and try to understand, and there just is no understanding. Thankfully, we have some great people in our community, and we have the Knox County Sheriff's Office, who always acts with just the utmost professionalism, and did in this situation. Of course, the suspect was killed by a Knox County Sheriff's Office deputy, and I know that that's going to weigh on that deputy. So he's in our prayers too, and it's just one of those things that you can't understand why things like that happen.
You got that on top of a global pandemic. A lot of the county is shut down right now. How do you stay positive? How do people stay positive in times like this?
Well, I think it's important to realize that when we're looking at the COVID-19 pandemic, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's a good thing. And also, we can either look at things as problems or we can look at them as challenges. And we're going to be faced with a lot of challenges even coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our economy has been greatly harmed, and we are going to have to, as a community, come together. There are going to be a lot of people that are hurting. Some folks will have lost loved ones. Some folks will have lost jobs. Some folks will have lost their savings. So we're going to have people that are hurting, in some cases physically, in some cases financially, emotionally, spiritually. And as a community, this is a time that we can really lift each other up. And that's what we're going to do. I have a lot of faith in my fellow Knox Countyans that that's what we always do, and that's what we'll do again.
I won't read any numbers because this will air Sunday, and
Sure.
We're taping this on Thursday morning. But what likely isn't going to change is the statewide order to stay home unless you're traveling for necessary trips. Revisit your reaction to this increased restriction on Tennesseans.
Sure. Here in Knox County, we've seen a lower number of cases as well as a lower number of hospitalizations and fatalities due to COVID-19. And I think a lot of the reason for that is because our folks here are just naturally going to do what they have to do to protect themselves and to protect their families. And Governor Lee he's in a different position than I am. He's over the whole state. I think that when you ask people, encourage people to do things, we have to take responsibility for our actions. And people generally do that. So when it comes to government mandates, I don't like those because it's the government demanding that you do something or else, which can become that can become problematic, especially when we're looking afterwards, what happens after this is all over. And then we look at the businesses that have been shuttered. For instance, I went to my gym right before it closed, and they were in there doing everything that you possibly could imagine. And the person that owns the gym actually was a former RN who has a lot of experience with infectious diseases. So they were taking the necessary precautions. So in that case, I wish we would have been able to work more with some businesses and saying, hey, this is an issue, this is what you need to do. and we're going to inspect you. And I think a lot of businesses would have done their utmost to comply with all of that.
You think restricting the way business is done instead of restricting certain businesses?
Yes, I think we all realize this is a serious issue. And when we're looking at things like barbershops, hair salons, nail salons, the reason that they were closed is because you're in close personal contact with someone for a period of time, and there's really no way to avoid that. You know, and what we're actually working on now is getting together with some businesses, myself and some other elected officials, and coming up with some best practices that, because this is not things aren't going to go back to normal tomorrow by any stretch of the imagination. And even after, you know, businesses are allowed to open, they're going to have to ensure the public safety. You know, so best practices and how they can do that and how we can get them open as soon as possible. This has been a huge economic hit to our area, to the country, to the globe. And I'm not talking about, you know, discretionary income. I'm talking about people being able to put food on the table and being able to pay rent. And one of my concerns is that when we look at the long-term consequences of COVID-19, the economic consequences are going to be monumental. And when we look at long-term harm and in some cases long-term death, economics plays a part in that. And if you don't have a healthy economy, you're not going to have healthy people. So we have to do everything that we can to ensure that we have both.
And talk to me about some of those economic issues. Well, you and I were talking about you're probably actively working on a county budget.
Sure.
Talk to me about the balancing act. You guys have already made some cuts. Talk to me about that.
Right. We've already implemented a hiring freeze and a wage freeze for the upcoming budget. You know, we're talking with our department heads, and they've been working with us, seeing where that they can make appropriate cuts. You know, some of the things that we've done in the past, we're simply not going to be able to do because we're not going to have the money to do it. I mean, our sales revenue is going to be down for the end of this year, and who knows what happens next year. We have projections from the state, but they're just projections, and we should all realize that. And then when we even look at our property tax collections, you know, again, here in Knox County, when we're looking at people taking personal responsibility for stuff, almost everybody in Knox County pays their property tax on time. We have an extremely high rate of that. Well, when people get into a cash crunch, that's going to be a problem. So that's something that we're going to have to take into account. So we're doing the best that we can with the budget, but just like any other organization, any other business, at this point, it's very fluid. When we look at the overall economy, over the past 2 weeks, well, of course, again, we're filming this on a Thursday. The unemployment numbers will come out today for last week. 9.9 million Americans filed new unemployment claims, 140,000 in the state of Tennessee, which is staggering. Again, just unprecedented numbers. And many of those people are folks that are living paycheck to paycheck, that are going to have a really hard time. So again, for me, it's, you know, we got to get the economy open again and running again. We just need to make sure that we ensure public safety while we're doing that. But there are consequences to keeping things shut down for a prolonged period of time.
Do you believe that the ongoing school construction projects will be affected by this?
When we look at our capital budget, you know, we may have to make some tweaks. I anticipate that we're still going to do the projects. We may not be able to complete them in the previous time frame, but we still are doing the projects.
Do you foresee any effect right now on the AJ building project?
I don't currently. Again, though, everything's really in a state of flux. So at this point, that still looks like it's a go. But ultimately, we're going to have to deal with fiscal reality. So we'll see what happens there, and if that changes, we'll have to change our plans.
You've expressed many times very libertarian views, limited government, personal responsibility, and watching you navigate this pandemic, you've stated before you see a need for these social distancing guidelines. Sure. You follow them. You've said that you followed them. But at the same time, you on the other shoulder, perhaps, you feel that this is all a little bit too heavy-handed and that it's doing more harm than good in some cases.
Yeah, again, I think government officials encouraging people what to do and sharing their expertise, and, you know, the social distancing, by the way, I don't like that term because it's not social distancing, we're physically distancing. And socially we need to be more together than we ever have been. All those things are very appropriate. When we look at our economy, for instance, though, what's happened now is there are unintended consequences that we're going to see that are going to be disastrous for people's lives. And we have to balance all those things. And in the end, it's all about personal responsibility. And most people are going to do what they need to do to keep themselves safe and to keep their families safe. Unfortunately, some people won't, and we always have that. But as a society, it's really up to us, both as an individual and as a community, to encourage people to do what they should do. And I saw it. I mean, you see, right now you see businesses that are still in business, but they are taking measures above and beyond what government officials are recommending. And all too often we point at the people who don't do the right thing, and we don't look at the people who do the right thing. And it's overwhelming the people who do the right thing, especially here in a place like East Tennessee, where I think that most of us understand that in the end, government can still tell us, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that. And if people don't do it, there's a limited toolbox of what you can force people to do. So in the end, it's really all about the choices that we make as individuals.
You support where we are, though, until we get through the curve?
At this point, I want us to be able to get out as quickly as possible, and I support looking at how we can get businesses back open, looking at how we can get the economy going again. At the same time, we do have to realize that this is an issue, okay? And I've never said that, hey, this is no big deal. This is a big deal. So we have to be able to balance those two things.
Absolutely. Mayor Jacobs, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care. Still to come, President Trump calls out TVA, and Congressman Tim Burchett says give him a call. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE, 6 on your side.
If it involves the Big Orange, we discuss it on East Tennessee's #1 rated sports show. Since 2003, intelligent sports talk with former Vols and media insiders.
Watch Sunday mornings at 11, sponsored by Junk Be Gone and Phoenix Conversions.
We opened our doors in 1920. The next day, we delivered our first child. We grew quickly, fueled by innovation, new technology, medical advances that restore lives. And while we're not as small as we once were, each life we touch is personal. A century later, our experience continues to heal the people of East Tennessee, which is what we were created to do.
After being hurt in a car or truck wreck, the insurance company may try to contact you immediately. Don't be fooled. You don't have to give a recorded statement right then. It could hurt your case. Instead, call Nahan Saharovich and Trotz at 1-800-LAW-4004.
Hey, welcome back to Tennessee This Week. President Donald Trump criticizing the salary of TVA President Jeff Lyash.
It's ridiculous. Has to be the highest paid man in any government. Makes approximately $8 or $9 million. I don't know the gentleman, but he's got a heck of a job.
Well, those comments coming in response to a reporter's question during a White House briefing on COVID-19. President Trump saying he supports reducing the CEO's salary. Now, Senator Lamar Alexander coming to TVA's defense, saying Lyash's salary is lower than other big utilities, and going on to say in his statement, quote, attacking TVA doesn't do one thing to solve the pandemic and has no place in federal COVID-19 response legislation. TVA also responding, saying in part, quote, TVA's mission of service requires that we attract and retain highly skilled individuals in a specialized industry. Although a federal corporation, TVA receives no federal funding for its operations. And Congressman Tim Burchett tweeted out his personal cell phone number not long ago. He says he's received thousands of calls and texts asking for help and advice amid this crisis, this coronavirus crisis. Our Washington Bureau hearing from Congressman Burchett, who's really taking his work home with him.
just felt like I needed to do something, and that just came to me. I said, well, I'll just get my dadgum cell phone out.
Members of Congress are used to getting calls from constituents, but few of them pick up on their personal number.
Everything I got's because of people that I work for, so I'm more than happy to share it with them.
Last week, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett tweeted out his personal cell phone number.
I don't even know your name. You don't even have to live in my congressional district.
Burchett wanted to help people feeling overwhelmed by the coronavirus crisis.
Together, we're going to get through this, folks.
In the days that followed, the former mayor's phone received thousands of calls, voicemails, and texts from people not only in his district, but across the country and around the world. He says many are worried about losing their homes or businesses, and others want to know how to help.
But mostly, folks just want to hear a voice.
Beyond the physical effects, the pandemic is also impacting people's mental health. Burchett says 9 people in his community have recently died by suicide.
That's a horrible, horrible thing.
Burchett has referred constituents to available resources and even called the police for wellness checks.
Everybody knows me pretty much. I've lived here my whole life.
He says answering the calls and texts takes about 12 hours a day, but he isn't about to stop.
It's just good therapy for them, and honestly, it's good therapy for me.
In Washington, I'm Jessie Tenor.
Well, still to come, we're dialing up our panel of pundits. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE 6 on your side.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Growing a lush lawn doesn't have to be complicated. With premium grass seed, long-lasting fertilizer, and rich soil enhancers all in one bag, Pennington Lawn Booster works harder so you don't have to. Pennington Lawn Booster. Quicker, thicker, greener grass, guaranteed.
It's time like these when you realize what's really important. You want to keep your family healthy. The folks at Wholesale Furniture Outlet understand this. Our families are important to us just like you. You're spending all this time at home and realize you need new furniture. Wholesale Furniture Outlet has furniture for all budgets and pricing of 50% off of regular retail every day and with no credit financing available. See our Facebook page and tell us what you like. Wash your hands, watch your social distance, and keep your family safe. Wholesale Furniture Outlet.
We're going to turn now to our panel of pundits here, socially distant from one another via Zoom. And, of course, we have our healthcare analyst, Craig Griffith, our political contributor, Courtney Piper, and political analyst, George Corda. So let's start with my conversation with Mayor Jacobs. He offered us some positive news earlier in the week about Knox County and the area having enough hospital beds for a potential surge, but you also heard a lot of concern on his end about the economic impact of all this. George, I just wanted to get your take on my conversation with the mayor.
Well, yeah, as you're looking at the county budget, when you're sitting at the top of the county pyramid, you're looking at some really significant shortfalls. And one of the offshoots of the coronavirus response and the shutdown of the economy, basically, is that in the near term, and then for some time afterwards, people are going to be in a position of not being able to receive from government the services they have come to expect from government. There's just not going to be the money. And that's going to create issues that, frankly, we haven't had to deal with in memory. And so Mayor Jacobs is looking at this from two standpoints. That is, what do we do to get going again? And then once we get going again, how do we fund the things that we need to fund? Education among them.
Courtney, what did you make of his overall tone in our conversation?
Well, I absolutely agree with Mayor Jacobs in that the economy's not going to turn around tomorrow. And in a lot of ways, I think what's happening now could become a lot worse than the recession of 2008. And that's because right now businesses are literally shut down. In 2008, we had people who were tightening their belts. They couldn't necessarily afford to buy a lot of things or maybe go out to dinner a lot. But this scenario is very, very different. Businesses are actually closed. Their doors are shut. So I think it's really going to fall on our state and local leaders to come up with some very creative strategies, ideas, and approaches for how we get our economy back on track once we can open for business again. That's going to be key, because right now the uncertainty is crushing business.
Craig?
Well, I think Mayor Jacobs is struggling with what we're all struggling with. What is that balance? We have seen what, staying open for business, like what happened with the Mardi Gras celebration in New Orleans and the spring breakers on the beach. It can spread like wildfire if there isn't our social distancing practices, even though he likes to call it physical distancing. So I think we're all struggling with how can we get our economy cranked up again and maintain that downward trend on the curve. And I think that until people have assurances that when they go out, perhaps to eat or something like that, they won't be subject to contracting COVID-19, it'll be a very long time before business gets back rolling. But I think I would salute our local leaders, both on the county side and the city side, because they seem to have developed a fairly good rainy day fund in their budgets over the last, say, decade. And hopefully there's enough money in there to get through the short-term pain that they're going to experience from a really dramatic decrease in sales tax that you're going to see, which funds about 30 or 40% of the city budget and even a larger percentage of the school budget. So hopefully there's enough money in our rainy day fund and use that judiciously to get through this short-term loss of revenue.
Yeah, and if I could just change topics here, the first thing the mayor wanted to talk about was, in our interview, was about this stabbing tragedy, 3 victims losing their life in our area. So I just want to give you all an opportunity to kind of give your thoughts on what we've seen play out. George, we'll start with you again there.
Well, I think the questions become, as you look at this awful situation, what was the motive? Why did this occur? Because when you look at the name of the gentleman that the police had to kill, the thought for most people immediately is going to be, is this terrorism related? Fair or unfair? That's where the question is going to go. And 3 people lost their lives to someone who committed a violent act on them. And frankly, coronavirus is a huge, huge story. But so is that, and we need some information from authorities about what they know and what they can tell us now about what occurred at that pilot station.
Courtney or Craig, do you have any thoughts? Want to chime in?
Well, our thoughts go out to the families of the victims. My goodness, you wake up and go to work and you don't expect something like that to happen. So, we've lost mothers and sisters and granddaughters and things like that. So it's just a horrible day. And yes, we need a thorough investigation of this to find out if they can, because the gentleman is deceased now that did the perpetrator of the crime. So we may never know. And I'm certainly sure the families would like to have some resolution as to why their relative passed away, on a normal day in Strawberry Plains.
And we want to point out, again, we're taping this on Thursday, so this landscape may have shifted by the time this airs. Courtney?
This is an unspeakable tragedy, and it, I think, weighs even more heavy on the public in the midst of this global pandemic and crisis that we're in right now. So to the extent that TBI and local law enforcement officials can keep the public updated and be as transparent as possible, will be helpful.
It's hard to believe, but we are still, it's a presidential year. We've got an election coming up, and we've seen an end there in the Democratic race for the nomination. I want to start with Courtney on this question, but were you surprised at Senator Sanders' timing to drop out of the race?
I wasn't surprised at all. When Senator Sanders first started running for president, when Hillary Clinton was in the mix with Donald Trump, he was very clear that he had some ideas that he wanted to get out there to be part of a platform. And to the extent that he continues with his presidential bids and he continues to get the limelight, those ideas, and he mentioned this in his speech, are now starting to get more and more traction. So I am not surprised he dropped out of the race. I'm not surprised it took this long for him to drop out of the race. But it's a very good sign for the Democratic Party in terms of unification that appears to be happening and everybody coalescing around Joe Biden.
George?
Well, it's a little ironic. I don't know if ironic is the right word. Interesting to me that throughout the Democratic primary, when it was talk about diversity, and et cetera, that the Democratic Party has nominated a white male older than Donald Trump, or will apparently, presumptively nominate Joe Biden as a presidential candidate. And frankly, Mr. Biden, Trump's got his problems in communicating, as I mentioned before, in terms of his abundance of superlatives to describe himself and his unwillingness to say or allow anything that he thinks is critical to be said about it. He's just in the wrong arena for that. But Joe Biden's saying a lot of things lately that are just head scratchers and have a lot of people concerned about what it is he's saying and what may be going on. So this is going to be a truly extraordinary presidential campaign, and it's going to come down, I think, still to the economy. But I don't think the economy, if it's in bad shape, is going to be held against Trump on the basis of the effect of coronavirus, because it's affecting countries all over the world. It's how well is the economy coming back? That's going to be the question.
Hey, Craig, I'm sorry to do this to you. I got about 30 seconds to get your take.
Well, I think that Trump will be judged on how they implement many of these programs that Congress has passed. And so far, the stimulus bill has not been executed very well in the short term. Of course, it's only been a week or so, but it has to get into a much smoother implementation than it is now. Bernie Sanders, he campaigned really for 5 years and really never expanded his base. So I don't think that he, in the end, was able to get enough votes for that period of time that he campaigned for president. So now it's going to be Biden versus Trump. And certainly Trump says enough head-scratching things that Biden won't be out there by himself.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to the three of you. We'll see you next week right here on Zoom, I bet.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, we covered a lot of ground there, but that's our time. We hope you'll join us next Sunday at 12:30 for more Tennessee This Week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week